Lately, everything keeps reminding us of the past. Old movies, old characters, old stories we already know the ending of. And it's strange, because no one is really asking for something new. We're just relieved when something feels familiar. Not exciting, not better, just safe. And the more complicated the present gets, the more attractive that feeling becomes. Which makes you wonder, are we missing the stories? Or are we missing the version of ourselves who watched them without worrying about what comes next? I noticed how easily that question slips by. We talk about remakes like it's a creative problem, but it doesn't feel creative. It feels emotional, like the past quietly offering to hold something the present keeps dropping. Just to be clear, this isn't a statement. It's not a conclusion. And it's definitely not instructions on how to think. This is one perspective, observational, personal. You're free to disagree. You're free to feel something else entirely. Nothing here is meant to convince you, offend you, or fix anything for you. If something sounds familiar, keep it. If it doesn't, feel free to leave it where it is. Either way, think for yourself. That part is still yours. I always find it funny how disclaimers sound serious, like they're protecting someone. They're not. They're just a reminder that this is a conversation, not a verdict. And conversations work better when no one is trying to win. In the last few episodes, we talked about how quickly everything went back to normal, how the noise returned without really checking if anyone was ready. Before that, it was about confidence, about certainty, about how comfortable it has become to sound sure about things we barely understand. Different topics, same background feeling. And this one comes from the same place. Because when the present starts to feel loud, complicated, unfinished, something interesting happens. We stop looking forward. We start looking back. Not in a dramatic way, not even consciously, just choosing familiar ground whenever it's available. I didn't plan these episodes as a series. They just kept circling the same tension from different angles. Speed, certainty, familiar answers. Nostalgia fits there naturally. It doesn't argue with the present. It simply offers an exit. When people say they miss old movies, they usually talk about the stories, the characters, the worlds, the way things used to look. But if you really listen, it's rarely about the plot. It's about the feeling. Sitting somewhere comfortable, knowing the ending doesn't matter. Watching something without expecting it to change you, challenge you, or prepare you for anything. Back then, stories didn't feel like homework. They were just there, something you could stay inside for a while without checking the time. I don't think we remember those stories clearly. We remember how little they demanded from us. No opinions required, no context needed, just attention, and even that felt optional. The present asked for a lot, not all at once, just constantly. It wants your attention, your reaction, your opinion. Even simple things feel like they come with instructions now. Updates, context, decisions. The present doesn't really let you sit back. It keeps checking if you're still involved. And at some point, it stops feeling like nostalgia. It starts feeling like relief. Not because the past was better, but because it doesn't ask you to participate. When you're tired, not physically, just mentally, familiar things start to feel lighter. Not because they matter more, but because nothing is required in return. That's usually the moment people don't notice, when the choice quietly changes. It's no longer about remembering. It's about avoiding. Not dramatically, just efficiently. Before we go further, just a quick pause. This channel is one part of a larger space. Punchline Protocol is where we talk about things quietly, through observation, through irony. But some questions don't stay light. They get heavier the longer you look at them. That's what the dark side protocol is for. Same way of thinking, same refusal to shout, just aimed at systems that don't like being looked at directly. If you're curious, everything is linked in the description. And if not, that's fine too. I never wanted this to be just a channel. It's more like different angles on the same discomfort. Punchline looks at how we live with it. Dark Side looks at where it comes from. You don't need both, but it helps to know they exist. Let's keep going. Nostalgia doesn't ask for much. It doesn't need your opinion. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't expect anything in return. It just offers something familiar and promises not to change anything, which makes it incredibly convenient. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to think about it. You just recognize it. And recognition feels productive now, like you've done something, like you've participated. Even though nothing actually moved, nostalgia is the only place where everything already makes sense. The ending is known. The risks are gone. Nothing unexpected happens. No decisions are required. And somehow, that absence of friction starts to feel like relief. That's what makes nostalgia such a perfect background. It fills the space without asking for involvement. You can let it play while focusing on something else. It feels meaningful, but never insists on being understood. Participation without the inconvenience of engagement. When people say they want things to come back, they're not really asking for repetition. They're asking for certainty, for a story that won't surprise them, for something that won't suddenly ask, "And now what?" Familiar things don't put you on the spot. They don't require courage. They don't require belief. You already know how it ends, which means nothing is at risk. And in a world that keeps changing its rules, knowing the ending feels like control, even if it's borrowed, even if it only lasts for the length of a movie. I don't think this is weakness. It feels more like self-preservation. When the future looks unstable, predictability becomes comforting, even if it's artificial, especially if it's artificial. Nostalgia isn't the problem. It never was. The trap is what we ask from it. We don't use it to remember. We use it to avoid deciding, to stay somewhere where nothing depends on us, where the future doesn't need an answer. The past feels safe not because it was better, but because it's finished. And when the present feels unfinished, finished things start to feel like shelter. That doesn't mean we're stuck. It just means we're tired of pretending we're not. And maybe that's the part worth noticing. Not the movies, not the remakes, but the quiet moment when familiarity starts to replace curiosity. Nothing to fix, just something to be aware of. I don't think nostalgia needs to be fought. It only becomes a trap when it turns into a substitute. When remembering feels easier than staying present, that's usually when curiosity goes quiet. Not dramatically, just politely. If this thought stayed with you, that's enough. Just notice what feels familiar and why.